even before I tried this filter, I was like, I look really cute today. Even though it looks like the background is blending in with my hair and you can't see it. Whatever. Anyways, so I decided to share some unintended trauma that I picked up when I was younger. So I was born, early 90s. So that was the time of like, for me, of hot combs and all kinds of like straightening tools, especially the hot comb. Ugh, I still want to flinch. But it's funny because like as a kid we would always get the hot combs and that's how our hair would be done, just always the hot combs, never anything other than like straightening. And then after we reached a certain age we would get the relaxers, and so that became the norm, like relax and then straighten it some more. And it got to the point where like I kind of internalized that me always having my hair done out of its natural state was not a good thing. And so I ended up with a lot of internal trauma because like no one intends that, this is the norm, this is what everybody is doing, this is the only way we're going to be accepted kind of stuff. No one really intends to like make that trauma. And so it would freak me out so bad to where like I even had a family member when I was like younger try to take a picture of my hair in its natural state and I would freak the fuck out and scream and cry. And like it should have technically just been, one of those I'm just gonna take the picture and whatever things, but I had internalized the fact that my hair in that state was bad. So getting attention for it was bad. And so I didn't respond very well. Like now I see it a little bit differently, whereas like maybe that would be considered not so good from anyone else's perspective. But then, getting older and especially like going to school was the absolute fucking worst. I actually, well, the only other times that my hair was in its natural state is when we did braids, and my favorites was always the braids with the beads because that that was my thing. But when we started getting relaxers, that the braids ended for the most part, and then it was just always straighten, bump, and I hated it because my hair always took the longest because I have like the most coarse hair out of everybody else that it was in my family at the time. And it was always just like I needed a whole other day aside from everybody else for mine to be tackled. And I was just like, I hated it because I hated like the itching and the burning that came with it. Um, I hated the way my hair itched as it was growing out too. My hair would grow out of the relaxers faster than it should have. And so it would leave me in this weird state where it's just like I can't really get a relaxer right now, but it can't really be matched to the ends. And so it created this like mushroom puff on top of my head of like partially straightened hair, and the rest of it was just like really, really thick and really like borderline completely natural and just straightened. And so I would get like made fun of a lot at school for that. And that became like a really big trigger. And it left me feeling really crappy about myself when my hair wasn't done in a certain way all the time. And it took me a long time to get out of that trauma that, you know, my hair in its natural state is not bad. And it was one of those times where I was just like looking at myself in the mirror, one of those times where I just had a period of growth on the inside, and it was just like I don't want to keep seeing my natural state as a bad thing. If my hair is like this naturally, then I just want to love it. I want it to just be accepted. And if nobody else can accept it, I want to accept it. I want to deprogram that thing outside of me that says that this isn't acceptable, because this is me. This is naturally me. This is fully me. And I like it. And so when I stopped, I struggled really hard. I hated my hair. I still hated my hair, like after I stopped getting the relaxers and stuff, because then it wouldn't straighten right. I couldn't get it to curl the way that I wanted it to curl. It didn't matter how many times I like cut it, because at that point I had to do all of that by myself. So I ended up learning to do a lot of protective styles from watching YouTube videos. And it was a long road because it took me a lot to like figure out how to do it right. And the funny thing is that even though from my perspective I didn't do a good job, nobody could really tell that I did it myself when I like first started. And that was funny to me because it was like, this was hard. Like, I'm literally like looking out the corner of my eye, half turned in the mirror, trying to see where I'm going, taking pictures of the back of my head because I didn't have like any kind of setup that would allow me to do this, so that I could just like using my phone in the mirror to see the back of my head while I'm sitting here trying to part. And it's just funny. But it took me a long time to get over that. And it was like unintentional trauma. And my takeaway from these situations is that nobody necessarily in this situation was wrong or like malicious or like bad. I don't see anybody who led up to this point as bad. But like it didn't change the fact that the trauma happened. And it just, to me, it highlights that just because trauma was caused doesn't mean that everybody involved is a bad person. This was just the way things were, and it was all that they knew at the time. And so how I internalized it wasn't necessarily anybody else's fault. I mean, there could have been reassurances, but like, what reassurances do you have when there are none for you? It has to start somewhere. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that, I guess, that bit of trauma that was like, it created a really terrible internalization of self-hatred, but at the same time, like, it doesn't mean that people involved were bad. And I think that's why I have the weird perspectives that I do on like sharing my own stories about things that have happened to me in the past. Relatively, because you know, it's all relative to me. Anyway.